Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Film Brits podcast. I'm your host, Trilby, the Tiffany who you have breakfast with of film criticism, and I'm just going to be right up front and just let you folks know, this episode is going to be dealing with some relatively heavy subject matter. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put the time, as I always do, I'm going to put the time codes and the timestamps in the description below, whether you're listening to this on iTunes or on your podcast app or on YouTube or on SoundCloud. There will be timestamps in the description below. I'm going to talk about the heavy subject matter first, so that those of you who want to only do like one time skip, only one jump forward, can do that right about now if you would rather this podcast just be about fun, just be about escapism and movies and stuff like that, because we are going to be talking about the Andy Signore and Harvey Weinstein and topics of that nature, basically. So if you're not interested in any of that, or if you don't want me to talk about anything like that, then you can just skip forward now, and then we'll get to the fun stuff later. For example, all the trailers that I've just dropped over the past week, and also an extended lightning round where I've specifically asked for more fun questions because of the downbeat nature of this. So without further ado, let's get started. I was actually hoping to make this podcast about a week ago, when some people were starting to talk more about the release of Jeepers Creepers 3, of all things, directed by Victor Salva. And what happened was that shortly after that, after I was going to record that podcast, all the news came out about Harvey Weinstein and then Andy Signore, and then I thought this kind of falls under the same umbrella of what I wanted to say with Victor Salva. So I waited a couple more days for more information to come out. Last night, this is Monday night I'm recording this. On Sunday night, the one just gone, I recorded an episode of the Movie Mania podcast talking specifically about the Screen Junkies Andy Signore thing. We recorded that before he had been officially terminated from Defy Media and Screen Junkies. At the time, he'd only been suspended, so that episode is slightly outdated. So, we're just going to break all of that down. For those of you who don't know, Victor Salva is the director of Jeepers Creepers and Jeepers Creepers 3, and he got started making horror films in the late 80s and the early 90s, and what happened was that one of the child stars of his film Clown House, it was a 12-year-old boy, was molested by this director, and the police came into his house and they found videotapes and magazines containing explicit child pornography. He was tried. Salva pled guilty to lewd conduct under the age of someone of 14, and also procuring child pornography, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. He served 15 months. He completed his parole, and now he's back making movies. He's making Jeepers Creepers 3, and many people have been saying they should boycott the film because of his prior actions. Now, you're probably wondering where I stand on this, since I'm the one who brought up this topic. For me, it's not as easy as just saying we must boycott Jeepers Creepers 3 because of the actions of the director, and anyone who has made Jeepers Creepers 3 is complicit and associates themselves with Victor Salva. As somebody who works in the media industry, who is part of TV and film productions, it is a huge collaborative medium. Jeepers Creepers 3 is going to be a relatively low-budget film, but there's still going to be hundreds upon hundreds of people working on it. And while Victor Salva may be the director, I also think he is also the screenwriter and one of the producers. He is not the sole creator of that film. So when you say you're not going to watch Jeepers Creepers 3, that's absolutely fine for whatever your moral standing is. It's completely up to you. And that's kind of what this all boils down to. It's up to you. Where do you personally draw the line? I know that people are saying that they're probably not going to watch Justice League because of the recent behaviour of Joss Whedon. I say recent, it's behaviour that was in the 90s and the early 2000s concerning his wife, but I think that's a different topic altogether. So, I'm sorry if I completely bungle the execution of this segment of the podcast. I'm just trying to be sensible in what I'm saying and trying to communicate my thoughts and articulate them effectively. So, you have this guy who has spearheaded this film, and he's a very controversial figure, understandably so. This is not a case of somebody who has had accusations thrown at them, like, for example, Woody Allen. He he possibly did molest a child, but that he was investigated, he was interviewed, there was forensics, and no actual evidence was found against him. But many people have taken that to say that he has definitely done those things. He has not been tried, he has not been convicted, or anything like that. This guy, Victor Salva, definitely did do the things he did. There was videotapes of it. He was tried, he was sentenced, he served half of his time. So what you have here is, so like, where do you personally draw the line? Because this is not just a crime. This is it's molestation. It's paedophilia. It is considered one of the worst things a human being can possibly do. So if you don't want to watch Jeepers Creepers 3 solely because of that, then more power to you. That is your right as an individual. But when you look at filmmakers like this in general, do you throw everyone in that production under the bus? For me, I have no stake in Jeepers Creepers as a franchise. I've not watched any of the films. It's outside of my sphere, relatively speaking. It's something that I had little interest in. Regardless of this whole controversy with Victor Salva, I probably wouldn't have seen or noticed or done anything with the film anyway. I have no stake in the Jeepers Creepers franchise. I just think it's an interesting talking off point. When somebody who definitely did do the things that he was accused of doing and served his time, but he served his time. Do we forgive? I think it's kind of a given that we do not let him work on a project with anybody under the age of consent for the rest of his life. I think that's kind of goes without saying. But someone who has done the crime, he did the time, do we forgive him? Do we let him have a career? Like, we don't have to watch his films, but do we at least let him have the creative freedom to continue pursuing what he wants to do? Jeepers Creepers 3 is a film that is very much spearheaded by Victor Salva, and he also wants to do sequels as well, depending on how well the film does. Do we prevent him from doing that because of his salacious past? That's not for me to answer. That is a collective thing, and that is something that only... That's terrible phrasing. Not a collective thing. It's something that only we can do on an individual basis. For me, I'm not going to watch the film. But it's not an active boycott. I was never going to watch the film anyway. And if you were someone who was interested in the Jeepers Creepers films, but just do not want to continue supporting this creator, then that's fine by you. But also, you got to consider the fact that him and the studio have got to pay the wages and the salaries of all the hundreds of people who worked on the film. So maybe was it a mistake to hire this guy in the first place? It's a tough topic, and it's something that I want to throw out to you guys if you're interested in talking about it at all. And I just think it's an interesting jumping off point to talk about the other people involved. Now, I'm not saying that Harvey Weinstein and Signore are as bad as literal child rapists. I'm not saying that. It is just a matter of timing. This is stuff that I was going to talk about before, and then all this stuff happened to drop. Nor am I also saying that child molestation and being a really shitty husband like Joss Whedon are, the two don't necessarily equate. They don't. They are two very different levels on the spectrum of scumbagginess, and it's why this conversation and topic is very hard to have, because you do need a lot of nuance, and the internet notoriously is incapable of nuance. So let's talk about the whole Harvey Weinstein thing. This is, for those of you who do not know, Harvey Weinstein is one of the Weinstein brothers who started the Weinstein Company and also founded Miramax in the late 1980s. Miramax is a pretty big movie company, production company, who was started by the Weinstein brothers. They were born into wealth. Their family were from like the diamond industry, and they started their company with daddy's money, more or less, and they were able to build it up into an empire where they have had literally hundreds upon hundreds of Oscar nominations and multiple Oscar wins for their films and the people that have been involved with them. They kickstarted the careers of Quentin Tarantino, of Kevin Smith, and they have also provided Oscars for Colin Firth, I don't know why I'm blanking right now, but there's a lot of people in the industry have a lot to thank Harvey Weinstein and Bob Weinstein for in regards to bolstering their careers, financing their earlier works, and providing them with Oscar and awards glory. But also there have been rumblings of this for years and years, but now that Harvey Weinstein in recent years has his empire is slowly starting to fall apart in recent years with films such as Gold and also The Founder, where he was supposed to give those films pretty big Oscar pushes and he did not, and he also bungled the release of The Founder so badly that he was subject to a lawsuit because he actually broke the contract. He was not meant to release Gold, which is the Matthew McConaughey film, and The Founder, the Michael Keaton McDonald's biopic. He was not meant to release those in a similar proximity. He did, and as a result he broke contract and he was sued for it. But that is not the subject we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be the sexual harassment allegations that have been going on for decades. How he would take advantage of young actresses and young women in the industry. He would want sexual favors in, and in response to that, he would help to bolster their careers. He would non-consensually touch. He would try and harass. He would flirt. Much worse, and this is a pattern of behaviour that's been going on for decades. And the New York Times posted an expose of it on Thursday night, Friday morning, basically outlining everything that's been going on for the past decades, to which a lot of Hollywood responded with no shit, as this guy is like a notorious creep around LA, around Hollywood and that general area. And in recent, it's tough to talk about in regards to, well, maybe the company did not know that this was happening. They would have to pay out numerous lawsuits, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of money to silence the women who he was harassing, to settle out of court so that they would that the victims would be quiet. And can you just imagine being that accountant at the Weinstein Company and thinking, okay, so in the budget, hundreds of thousands of dollars have gone down to silence women who you've sexually harassed. Maybe we should talk about that. So you can't say that the Weinstein Company and the board members were they were just bystanders. They did not know what was going on. They knew what was going on, but because Harvey Weinstein was a powerful man in Hollywood, they let it happen. And it's only depressingly in recent years, where Weinstein's influence is slowly fading away, that people felt brave enough to speak up about it. And the New York Times exposés, it's kind of disgusting just reading all of the stuff that he did. I won't repeat it here, but you can easily find the details online. And what happened in response to the Weinstein allegations is that some women came forward saying that Andy Signore, who is one of the hosts and the creators of Screen Junkies and Honest Trailers, that he was using his position of power at Screen Junkies to sexually harass and sexually assault fans and also co-workers and interns, as particularly JTE, who is one of the behind-the-scenes members of Screen Junkies. His girlfriend was sexually harassed. And not to say that the word of these women who were coming forward was irrelevant or insignificant, but when you even have co-workers going against this person, it in a way does add sort of legitimacy. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or that is the way that things should be, but I've seen a lot of comments online saying they would rather believe that dozens upon dozens of women have had a mass conspiracy against Andy Signore. They would rather believe this elaborate communication and faked screenshots and that this was a coordinated effort from numerous insidious women. They would rather believe that than believe that one guy can be a bit of a scumbag. And that's one issue that's why it's so hard for many victims of sexual harassment or sexual assault to come forward, because they are not believed, because they're instantly cast doubt upon. And because you have many people, I'm not going to name names, but you do have many YouTube channels and online personalities who say that there's an epidemic of false rape accusations. How there's this massive endemic epidemic of women who just hate men so much that they will say that they were sexually harassed by them in order to take them down. Where in actuality, those instances are almost as rare as Bigfoot sightings. It isn't. It is a micro%. It is a percent of these false accusations that come forward. It is a fraction of 1% in terms of sexual harassment cases and sexual harassment accusations that go to the authorities, that turn out to be spurious, that turn out to be fake. So it's not these false accusations epidemic that many people online who let's just face it, they hate women. I know that sounds really, really blunt to say, but there is a significant corner of the online community, and also it's in the geek community, that just flat out hate women. They're not going to say, "Oh, I hate women." That's not how that's not how it works. It is kind of more subconscious and insidious than that. But with these women who came forward for Screen Junkies, they said that they had interviews planned with journalists over the coming weeks, but because of the Harvey Weinstein topic, because of the New York Times expose, that they were going to use this momentum, use this public conversation about sexual harassment and people abusing positions of power against women to continue the conversation and to make these allegations. And on the story gets even worse, and it's also quite similar to the Weinstein Company, although I think it's on a smaller scale, but it is still significant, where Defy Media, their HR department, Defy Media, they are the ones who own Screen Junkies. They also own Smosh, they own many other online entertainment companies. They were told months ago about Andy's behaviour, and they did not do anything about it. The women who came forward were not taken seriously, and Defy Media protected Andy Signore, and they sat on this for months, and it was not until the people came forward publicly on Twitter and online and on social media that they actually took action. And it's very similar to the Weinsteins, where the board and Weinstein were saying, "Oh, it is only in light of recent evidence and recent investigations that we've decided to let him go." No, it's because it went public. These companies, they openly and flagrantly sent the message that this only mattered because we looked bad. It didn't matter that these women were victims, that this has been going on for a long time and has affected dozens and dozens of individuals, and possibly more. We don't know. They said that doesn't matter, we just care about our bottom line and how this makes us look. This was a bad PR move for us, so we're going to respond to that. We're not going to respond to people's livelihoods and people's emotional and physical states. We're going to respond to our bottom line and our shareholders. And that is pretty disgusting. How Defy Media knew about this for months, how the Weinstein companies they've known about this for decades. They've had to settle out of court numerous times, knowingly that money doesn't come from that money doesn't come from the sky. That money has to come from the company. So it's these people abusing positions of power, and because they are in power, they are protected by the companies that they work for, and it's absolutely depressing. And a lot of people have been trying to use this situation to score cheap political points. Like, oh, Harvey Weinstein, he gave money to the Hillary Clinton campaign, and he proclaimed himself to be a feminist and all for women and all that stuff. And it's also a similar thing with Joss Whedon, how people were determined to somehow say that feminism is not legitimate because Joss Whedon, he was a feminist and he was a shitty husband. But this is a topic that it knows no political bounds. It is... Like, for example, Harvey Weinstein has been sexually harassing women for decades, and he's had to settle out of court numerous times, and he's had numerous allegations made against him, but nothing is really going to be happening in terms of legality. And the exact same thing can be said for Donald Trump on the opposite side of the political spectrum. Donald Trump has had to settle out of court for numerous sexual harassment allegations, and also the fact that he was caught on tape bragging about sexually assaulting and harassing women. Like, this is a guy who openly bragged about it, and he was able to become president of the United States. This is a culture that actually supports and rewards the behaviour of people like this. And hopefully, it probably won't, but hopefully these recent instances will see some sort of change happen. This is not a political issue, even though it can happen to political people. This is just a issue in terms of power and an abuse of power, and it's absolutely not right. And in one aspect I brought up earlier about people who were just defending Andy Signore for this, it it's a slightly different topic, but like I said, this is a very big issue that encompasses many facets and many different subtopics. But when you had people like, say, PewDiePie or JonTron, who are gaming personalities, say incredibly abhorrent and racist things, like PewDiePie, you can say taken out of context all you want, or you can be correct, or like JonTron, who said that on a stream that rich blacks commit more crimes than poor white people. That's a fact. Look it up. Which is not only 100% wrong, but it also indicates that black people are just inherently more likely to be violent and commit crimes than white people, regardless of societal standards and regardless of their upbringing. That is a horribly misguided and racist comment, but people just leap to their defense, and you have this subculture of people online. And I'm not saying that I am an absolutely, completely, 100% perfect human being, but I at least endeavour to learn from my mistakes. What you have is this subset of people online who are so willing and so ready to jump to the defense of people who they like. And every person, every grown-ass adult, everyone who needs to meet some sort of level of basic maturity needs to have their do not meet your heroes moment. They need to have that moment where they meet somebody, or they are aware of the behaviours of somebody who they look up to and respect, and they need to understand that even though you may like their work or like what they do or seem to think that they seem like the nicest person in the world, that they are just as capable of doing bad things as other people. Some people are capable of doing horrible, despicable things, and you need to have that reality waking moment. You need to have that do not meet your heroes incident where someone you look up to is caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and you need to have that moment of awakening so you can further process you later adult life moments, how you can understand people and understand that we are all flawed human beings. But when you are in this online culture surrounded by millions and millions of people just willing to jump to the defense, you feel vindicated when you jump to their defense as well. You are caught in an echo chamber of positivity that refuses to let you see the real truth of what's happening. You do not have to come to terms with the flawed nature of someone or somebody you respect in the online sphere, because you are surrounded by hundreds and thousands of yes men or yes women who are willing to go to bat for these people. It's strength in numbers. Decades ago, it would have just been kids on the playground. They hear something about a celebrity they don't like, and that's the beginning and the end of it. It's just maybe a couple of people on the playground or a couple of people in a social circle. Now online, it's hundreds and thousands of people who can vindicate your positive thoughts, and you never actually have that meet your heroes moment where you never actually grow up. And hopefully for many people, this screen junkies, I'm not saying that what's happened is positive. I'm not going to be like Donald Trump and say what happened in Las Vegas was a miracle. But this is a case of, like, hopefully if any good is gonna come out of this, it will be the geek culture and online culture as a whole will have some moment of self-reflection, and how just because Andy Signore seemed like the guy who, quote, wouldn't do those things doesn't mean he's not capable of doing those things. And it's a tough topic to talk about, but we need to have this conversation. We need to have this wake-up call moment, and for many people. And sometimes it can be a very bitter pill to swallow. For example, I was someone who, I hate to say this, but when these allegations came out against Johnny Depp, I was, in my own mind, I wasn't really very prolific about it, but I was a bit of an Amber Heard naysayer. I was thinking, why is she doing this? Is she trying to get attention? Are these just false accusations? Then you see the video, then you see the news stories, you see the eyewitness accounts, you see the statements that the lawyers have been giving about Johnny Depp and his like $30 million a month habits, and how he would spend millions of dollars a month on wine, and how he had this out of control spending and this really unhealthy and damaging lifestyle. And you see the emails and you think, okay, maybe this is, for like, I've had many meet your heroes moments, but this is a recent one where Johnny Depp seems like a bit of a dickhead, and maybe these were not just spurious claims against someone who's trying to be opportunist. It's something that we all need to go through. It's something we all need to accept. and it's depressing that it has to happen at the expense of these women online and in real life. But it's something that we all need to learn from and progress from. It's depressing, but it's got to be done. Now, the story is still developing in regards to Andy Signore and Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein released a statement shortly after the expose came out. You normally have two reactions. Obviously, you'll have reactions that can run the gamut, but typically, broadly speaking, you get these two reactions. You get the, yes, I did wrong, I'm going to change, I'm going to do better, I'm going to seek help, or you have the, these are spurious, these are false allegations, these are wrong, I'm going to fight them. Weinstein decided to have his cake and eat it too. Because he said, oh, these allegations are false, I'm going to fight them, but I need help, I'm going to therapy, I'm going to counselling. Dude's a scumbag. He's trying to discredit the accusations of these women who are he's trying to discredit the accusations of these women while also saying he's going to get therapy for it, and that he was raised in the 60s and 70s and that he's a dinosaur and that it was just how you did it these days. So he's trying to do both, and it comes across as really pathetic. And for Andy Signore, he's been terminated from Screen Junkies. He has been silenced as far as I can tell. The Screen Junkies, there's going to be no honest trailer today. They typically do it on Sundays or Mondays. It depends. Time zones. I'm from the UK. I don't know when exactly they officially update. But they're going to be taking a break, I believe. They're going to restructure. They're going to go on without Andy, I believe, and see what happens. But many of the Screen Junkies regulars have made statements on this, on the topic. You can find it on their social media feeds. So who knows what's going to be happening with Screen Junkies. I personally think that Screen Junkies will get on just fine without Andy. Honest Trailers is kind of the main draw for that channel, and it's as long as you've got the epic voice guy and the editors and some sharp guys who can do the writing for those videos, they're going to be absolutely just fine. And they're based in LA. They're based in a place where there's no shortage of talented writers or hosts or people who are willing to jump right back into Andy's place, or somebody in Screen Junkies can move up and take Andy's place, and somebody can fill in that gap for whoever just moved up. They're in a very big town. They are going to be able to replace and move on just fine. At least I think so. But whatever they want to do, if they want to stop or if they want to keep on going, that is their prerogative and completely up to them. Once again, for Weinstein, he also released a letter. Sorry that I'm flip-flopping back and forth. This is a stream of consciousness podcast. I don't have any notes in front of me. It's kind of amazing that I'm able to say anything at all. But he also released a letter a few hours before he was fired from his own company, speaking to movie executives, asking, I need your support, I need you to send letters, I need your help, and apparently nobody responded. And you're seeing some great online personalities and some actors and some actresses come forward, but still, considering the amount of people that Harvey Weinstein worked for, there should be a lot more people coming out, which just kind of speaks to his influence in Hollywood and how so many people there are just not who they're just so afraid to rock the boat, and it's very depressing. It might be a depressing Oscar ceremony next February, depending on who the crowd is who attends that ceremony. So there's no big overarching point to this thing. I just wanted to just talk about the people as a collective, and it's similar to I'm not saying that what Victor Salva and Andy Signore did is comparable, but you do not throw all of Screen Junkies under the bus because of the actions of one person there. You should not throw Jeepers Creepers 3 and their entire production team and crew under the bus for what Victor Salva did. It's still your prerogative, but that's just what I think. Like, for example, if I worked on a project and then it came out that the director of that project I was working on did some terrible things, do I quit? Do I stop? It's tough for me because I'm just starting out in the industry. I kind of need the money to live, and also these teams are made of hundreds and hundreds of people, and they are one important and key cog in that machine, but they are still just one of hundreds of people working on the whole enterprise. It's like if it was an author, typically with books you have one writer, maybe an editor, and you have a songwriter, you have a singular songwriter or a singular singer. It's a lot easier to boycott in totality and to see that point of view, but in a collaborative medium it is much harder. But in terms of Harvey Weinstein and his company, hopefully he'll never work in the town again. Hopefully there will be some sort of legal repercussion for the guy, or I don't know. I think there's going to be statutes of limitation. He has paid off a lot of people to remain silent as well, which is going to hurt the chances of a conviction or anything like that. We don't know what this is going to entail. This is still a developing story. Well, it's something I just wanted to say. But one final bit before we can move on to the fun stuff. If you are a guy out there in the online sphere, or it's not just online sphere, it's at work or in a community or at something you do in your day-to-day life, and you see a power dynamic like that, if you see somebody taking advantage of their position, male or female, if you see this behaviour happening, or blatant sexual harassment happening on your Twitter feed, or in a Facebook page, or in just at the library, if it's in person, if it's safe to do so, like if the person has got a knife and they're doing it, maybe call the police, but actually step forward and do something and call this behaviour out. As depressing as it is, if you are a guy who calls out this behaviour, it is seen as more legitimate. I'm not saying that's right, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but if you see some guy being sexually harassing to somebody online, and a bunch of girls are coming forward saying, don't do that, stupid, it's often seen as just petty and ridiculous. But if a guy steps forward and is like, you're being disgusting, cut it out, that can be seen as something a bit more substantial. It's wrong and depressing, but that is the world that we live in. A world where somebody can brag about sexually harassing women and become the president of the United States. That is the world that we are living in, and it's something we're going to have to adjust to and change over time. It will be a glacial change, but instances like this is where that change happens, and if there's going to be one positive to this whole thing, to this whole discussion, hopefully that change will occur, and we'll be able to educate ourselves and find the courage that these women also demonstrated in being able to step forward against these power dynamics, against this sexual harassment, whether it's happened to ourselves or people that we know or people that we see or only tangentially interact with. We can make these changes ourselves. The power, to quote Captain Planet, the best way to end a serious discussion is to quote Captain Planet, the power is yours. Okay, thank you. Welcome back to the people who wanted just fun times and wanted to not have heavy, weighty subject matter. Let's talk about the trailers that we got this past week. For those of you who did stick around, welcome to the tonal whiplash. Taking a sip of my coffee. So, the first trailer that broke is Pacific Rim Uprising, directed by Stephen S. Knight, who's taken over directorial duties from Guillermo del Toro. I almost said directorial beauties from Guillermo del Toro. Beautiful man, cuddly man, my neighbour, del Toro, Totoro, Guillermo. So, the sequel is set 10 years after the events of the last film, which I need to remind you folks was my favourite film of 2013. Absolutely no regrets. And what happens is that more kaiju come from the surface, come from the ocean to try and wipe out humanity, and John Boyega and numerous other Jaeger pilots have to fight them off. The trailer looked a lot of fun. I liked the effects. I liked the almost Power Rangers, Neon Genesis Evangelion-esque aesthetic. It didn't quite feel like a Pacific Rim sequel, though. It felt like if Pacific Rim was a billion-dollar movie, that Pacific Rim, this trailer would have been the trailer for one of its imitators. How it would have been like the massive wave of kaiju and giant robot movies that would have followed in the wake of a billion-dollar Pacific Rim movie. This does not feel like a Pacific Rim sequel. It feels like one of those tangential knockoffs, and that's not to say that the movie is bad or that it looks bad. It just doesn't look very Pacific Rim, because that film, with its Eastern neon aesthetic, and it's almost down to earth and rainy and dark and dark color palette, despite the elaborate subject matter, it's so distinctly Del Toro, and I identify that aesthetic so much with Pacific Rim that when Pacific Rim Uprising, the trailer dropped, and you had this lineup of these 4 elaborate kaijus with their own weapons. One of them had a whip, one had a ball and chain, one had a sword, one had an arm gun, and there was the big lineup at the end of the trailer. It didn't quite feel Pacific Rim. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. I was just slightly taken aback by it, and the sleeker design of the Jaegers was something I'm probably going to have to adjust to. But I like the cast. I like how Charlie Day and Bernd Gorman have come back. You've got Scott Eastwood and John Boyega, and Stephen S. DeKnight has proven himself to be a very good creator. This is something that he's not really known for feature film directing, so just jumping into a Pacific Rim sequel is a very big project to undertake. But the trailer looked fun. I wasn't a big fan of the music though. The budget is actually $50 million less than the first Pacific Rim. They were not going to be spending the same amount of money on a sequel, considering how disappointing the box office takings of the first film were. The first film did not bomb, but it cost nearly $200 million to make, and it made $411 million at the box office. So I think it just about broke even. Maybe merchandising and ancillary rights made it a profitable film. I don't have those figures in front of me. Very few people do. So hopefully this sequel is able to be a more profitable venture and also be good. Hopefully let's not forget about that. The sequel also needs to be good, but we'll find out when it drops on March 23rd, 2018. It is one of my most anticipated films for next year, mainly because I just loved the first film so much. So that's Pacific Rim Uprising. That was a fun trailer. Check it out. The next trailer that dropped was the one for Justice League, and it's the Heroes trailer. It's going to be one of the very last pieces of major promotional material we're going to be getting before the film drops on November 17th. And the trailer was okay. I thought it was an okay trailer. It was not as good as the Comic-Con one, though to be fair, the Comic-Con one was a longer trailer, which detailed a bit more plot and had better music. The trailer music for Justice League was a grunge cover of Heroes by David Bowie, and it's not a great cover, which is weird because you could have just used the original version of Heroes. You could have used that. It's good trailer music, it's got a good beat, it's got a good tempo to it. You could have used the original version and just done that, but I think they're maybe trying to sell the soundtrack, trying to sell the single like they did with the cover of Come Together for the first major trailer that dropped a few months ago. There's some cool imagery in the trailer, like Wonder Woman on that statue, the Cyborg catching Aquaman, more Batmobile footage. There's a lot of footage I've noticed in recent TV spots and trailers of Wonder Woman smiling. Like there's the shot where she takes down the parademons on top of the Batmobile, and then Flash runs past her, and then it cuts to her smiling. And there's also a TV spot called Coming, and she's smiling a lot in that one as well. I have a feeling a lot of the Joss Whedon reshoots were basically, okay, we're going to get the actors in costume, put them in front of a green screen. Can you just do a shot where you're, smiling, where you're actually having a fun time or enjoying each other's company, as opposed to all the Zack Snyder footage where everyone's just depressed as hell? I have a feeling maybe $13 million of the reshoot budget went specifically to smiling shots. I'm being facetious, of course, but hopefully you'll get what I mean when you're watching the trailers and the TV spots. There's a lot of good things to like about this trailer. I did like the opening where we had Henry Cavill, although the question I need to ask all of you folks is, was this a pre-mustache or post-mustache reshoot shot of Henry Cavill? It has the CGI effects got rid of the mustache from his upper lip, or was this done before that? Nobody knows. We got some cool action shots, particularly with the Batmobile, with an Aquaman. It looks very cool, it looks very enjoyable in terms of the action, but then again, the action in the trailers for Batman v Superman looked good, but in the final product itself, the action was really limp and lame and overall kind of terrible. I have a feeling they're going to be saving a lot of the third act for the film itself as opposed to the promotional material. The big battle with Steppenwolf and all the parademons and with the red sky and everything, I have a feeling that's either going to take place at the end of Act 2 or the beginning of the third act. And the rest of the third act is stuff that we're not going to see in the trailers and is going to revolve around the return of Superman. and maybe he comes in the black suit, maybe he has been hypnotized or does not know who he is, and the Justice League have to fight him. That would be a pretty cool climax for the Justice League film, but let's see where the story goes and the direction that it takes. So you can compare shots on Twitter all day as in terms of the color correction or the background changes and the special effect changes from Zack Snyder to Joss Whedon. You can do that all day, but really the end film is going to be the end film, and we kind of have to judge it as that. And if the film does terribly, at least in terms of reception, and the Joss Whedon cut is thought to be just unwatchable and terrible, then on the Blu-ray they can always put the Zack Snyder cut, which is also allegedly unwatchable and terrible. So you get two unwatchable cuts on Blu-ray for the price of one. Wouldn't that be nice? So the film looks okay, but I have been burnt by this franchise before. I'm currently leaning more to the positive because of the Joss Whedon reshoots, and also because of Wonder Woman, which did a lot for many people to restore faith in the DCEU. So let's see how this goes when this drops on November 17th, 2017. This is, let me count the days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 weeks away. In 5.5 weeks, we're going to have seen Justice League. It's a scary world that we live in, but also a pretty fun one at the same time. But the main trailer that everyone is talking about at the moment, which dropped less than a day ago at the time of recording, is the Star Wars The Last Jedi trailer. And I actually think out of all of the trailers I've talked about today, this is the best trailer, even though I'm not massively hyped for Star Wars movies. I think that they can look good, and I'm going to watch them anyway. I'm just someone who was not... the Star Wars films were not like life-defining moments like they were for many people. Like many people who were able to watch The Empire Strikes Back on the big screen when they were kids and be blown away by the Luke, I am your father and all that stuff. That wasn't me. I grew up on the what would you call them? The special editions on VHS in the gold cardboard box. Those are the versions I grew up with. I enjoyed them. I watched them a lot, and I loved them. But they didn't dig deep down into my psyche and make Star Wars this all-encompassing pop culture thing for me. I still love the films. Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope are some of my favourite films ever. It's just not something that has had its hooks buried in me almost on a genetic level like many people. So when I see a trailer for a Star Wars film, I think that looks really good. I'm going to go see that. As opposed to speculating and going down frame by frame or counting I'm not going to be counting the days for December 15th for Star Wars The Last Jedi. And I'm not going to be going on forums and everything looking up all the details and the plot spoilers and all that stuff. But still, this trailer looked pretty awesome. And it's in this weird position where you can give away more plot stuff and more imagery than you did for The Force Awakens because of its nature as a sequel and how you can't really rely on that twice in a row. But it's still, we're not getting massive confirmations in terms of the story. And I like that. I like that balance. This is a really well-balanced trailer in regards to giving us great imagery, teasing some plot elements, also maybe even the ending of the film, but we still do have this era of mystery about it, because this film is going to make $1 billion no matter what happens. They can market it with their cards very close at their chest and still make $1 billion. This is not like, say, the Avengers, where they gave away the Hulk saving Iron Man at the end. This is not like Iron Man 3, where they gave away the army of Iron Men at the end. You can get away with hiding stuff like that in Star Wars films, and I'm glad that Disney and Lucasfilm and the marketing departments are able to lean into that and just create really great, intriguing trailers. I love the mirroring aspect of Kylo Ren and Rey. How these two are kind of two sides of the same coin, that maybe at the end they come together to form a grey side of the Force, like a light and dark, black and white. Do they join forces for a happy medium? Do they restore balance of the Force by helping each other out as opposed to being in conflict with each other? How their journeys seem to be mirroring each other. How you have Luke and Rey and Kylo Ren and Snoke. and all of this tertiary business happening around with Finn and Poe and Leia and everything else. We're going to be seeing more of Captain Phasma, as in we are going to be seeing something of Captain Phasma. I like the shot where Chewie is with that little tiny furry penguin thing that roars as well. There's some just really good stuff in this trailer. I like this trailer a lot. I'm not going to be counting the days because it's just genetically not in me to be this massively hyped for Star Wars, but and also many websites crashed in regards to booking tickets, so I'm probably going to have to look out on the day. I saw The Force Awakens in the early afternoon, where it was a nearly full showing. I'm probably going to do that again for Last Jedi, where people are going to be booking. It's going to be sellout showings for midnight screenings or after work or after school screenings. But in the afternoon, during the middle of the day, when most people are not going to be at the cinema, that's probably going to be my opening to see The Last Jedi. So, I also saw Rogue One in that same setting in early afternoon, but I saw it with my brother. I didn't see it on my own. Me and my brother had a really fun time. So this looks really good. I'm liking the themes at play. I like how we don't know that much about the story, but we're only a couple of months out from The Last Jedi. We're 2 months away, basically. Yeah, we're 2 months and a week-ish from The Last Jedi. There's probably going to be one more trailer in late November, early December, and they're handling this campaign very, very well, and I'm looking forward to seeing the film. So that was the trailer Bonanza. I'm not going to be taking any Patreon topics this week, mainly because of I wanted to give something for me, considering how depressing the whole topic is, but I might dedicate next week or the next podcast to entirely Patreon questions, so we'll see how that goes. But let me go to the lightning round. For those of you who don't know, the lightning round is when I take requests for questions online via Facebook or Twitter. In this case, it was Facebook. And ask whether or not you should answer all of my questions ever. So I just got distracted reading something else and I just rambled and my sentence didn't make any sense. So I'm going to go on my phone, I'm going to get the timer for 60 seconds, and I'm going to be answering these questions that I have never seen before. Let me just get the post up. Internet is loading. Should have prepped this beforehand, but then I would have to reload the page anyway to reload any new questions that came in. Oh god, I accidentally clicked on someone's profile. Let me fix this. I can fix this. I can do okay. Might edit around this. Or not. Maybe I can't be bothered. Okay, here we go. So, first question. 3, 2, 1, go. Tom Wisnow Whiskey. I butchered that. Would you rather marathon the Sharknado or Mega Shark series? It's tough to say. For me, this is pick your poison, because they're not necessarily fun B movies. They're trying really, really hard to be schlocky B movies, but they're too knowing and too winking in order to do that, particularly the Sharknado series. The Mega Shark series, everything from that company, I think it's the Asylum who do them. They're kind of doing con jobs, so it's kind of hard to. I'm going to go for Mega Shark because I think Sharknado just is too knowing. At least I kind of appreciate or can admire the upfront nature of Asylum, who do these terrible knockoff movies, because for a quick buck I kind of respect that a bit more. Okay, so next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Taylor asks, how much Star Trek have you seen in your lifetime? I've seen about 5 or 6 of the movies. I've seen Wrath of Khan, I've seen The Voyage Home, I've seen the 3 J.J. Abrams and Justin Lin films. Star Trek Beyond is by far away the best one of that trilogy, but Wrath of Khan is amazing and something else. I've seen 1 episode of the original series, which is the Alice in Wonderland episode. It kind of turned me off Star Trek forever, but I have seen the first 3 episodes of Star Trek Discovery on Netflix. In the UK, it's been distributed via Netflix, and I'm enjoying it so far. I like it. I like the cast. I like Doug Jones as the big tall alien. I think that's a really cool makeup job. I really like the lead, Michael. I think she's really good. And I'm looking forward to seeing where the story goes. I think Jason Isaacs is really cool. The first 2 episodes were really good. The third one it's still trying to find its groove because that is the new status quo. But I want to see more. I'm going to stick with that series. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Edward asks, lesser known movie recommendations for Halloween. I recommend The Witch, Murder Party, and The Guest. Okay, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I know it's not necessarily lesser known because it is still part of that big Halloween franchise, but Not many people have watched it compared to the other Michael Myers films. Halloween 3 is the one that is completely separate from the Michael Myers and Laurie Strode chronology. It's its own standalone story, but it's really cool, really fun. Hocus Pocus, once again, it's not lesser known, but I still know a lot of people have just not watched Hocus Pocus. That's actually playing at a cinema near where I live, and my girlfriend really, really wants to go see it, so I think we might do that. There's a ghost film from the 60s and 70s. I forget what it's called. I'll come back to you on that one, but there's a ghost film where it's kind of like they have a seance around a table. I think it's in black and white. I can't remember. What the hell's that? So I thought someone was knocking on the door. I'll get back to you on that one. The minute is up, but I'll try and remember that by the end of the podcast. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Neil asks, should people watch Blade Runner before Blade Runner 2049? I like Blade Runner 2049, but about 80% of its issues stem from the fact that it is beholden to the original Blade Runner. Its callbacks, sometimes its blatant rewriting of history, actually kind of drags the film down. And if it was its own standalone story that had nothing, it was set in the Blade Runner universe, and maybe you can reference one or two of the events of the last film, but it's so beholden to the first one that it kind of drags it down. But in answer to your question, I think you kind of have to watch the first Blade Runner before Blade Runner 2049, because while it is a very great standalone story, it is kind of let down in terms of it's let down by the events of the previous film, and it is kind of reliant on those events as well. So you can probably watch Blade Runner 2049 and kind of get the gist of it, but you probably need to watch Blade Runner to really get the most out of Blade Runner 2049. But the final cut of Blade Runner is only about 2 hours long, whereas 2049 is 2 hours and 45 minutes, so it's not a massive time sink to at least check out the first Blade Runner. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Oscar Tidd asks, in honour of the new HBO documentary about him, what's your favourite Spielberg movie of each decade he has been working in? Oh god, I need to just quickly I don't want to get the dates wrong, so I'll just get a Steven Spielberg filmography up, and I won't elaborate too much because I need my full minute, but I'll try and find the accurate ones. I should not put research time in the minute. Like I said, I don't pre-screen these questions, so I don't know. Okay, so the 1970s, we're going to go for Jaws. For the 1980s, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. For the 80s, and for 1990s, Jurassic Park. Oh no, Schindler's List. It's got to be Schindler's List for the 90s. Sorry, the Jurassic Park is awesome. For the 2000s, I really like Catch Me If You Can. Yeah, I think I'll go Catch Me If You Can for the 2000s, and for the 2010s, I'm going to go for War Horse. I like Bridge of Spy a lot, but War Horse is one of my favourite films of his period. So sorry that I didn't really elaborate much on that, but those are my answers. And I've locked my phone because I'm an absolute idiot. So next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Joel says, seeing as it's nearing Halloween, what would you consider to be the scariest Doctor Who monsters? Classic Who and New Who are eligible. Scariest Doctor Who monsters, the Weeping Angels in their first appearance, as opposed to their later ones where they kind of ruined the internal logic of that. The gas masks, the gas mask creatures are really creepy. The Autons freak me out as well. If it wasn't for the Autons completely scaring the jeebus out of me when I first watched the series in 2009, it might not have resonated with me as much as it did, but those Autons, that's scary as hell. In the original series, they're not as scary, but you can tell that they're really trying. It's high concept. For the Classic Who, not much actually has scared me from the Classic Who, but mainly because I've been watching it with the new series in mind, and without actually growing up in that time period. So it is going to have to be new Doctor Who monsters. But yeah, let's go for the Weeping Angels in their very first appearance in Blink. So next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Sean asks, if you are a fan of the Saw franchise, I am, just a side tangent, which is your favourite and least favourite of them? I apologise if I get my details mixed up, because we talked about this on the Movie Mania podcast about the Saw films, and I completely mixed up some of the films, because there's 7 of them, and it's been a while since I've watched them all properly. So my favourite one is Saw 3, which is the one where that guy who's trying to get his daughter is going through that maze, and there's the guy with the crucifix trap, which is one of the most horrific things in the whole franchise. My least favourite, it's either 5 or 6. I can't remember. I think, which one's Saw 5? I think Saw 5 is the one that opens with the pendulum blade, and I think it might have to be 5, mainly because it just felt like the series was a bit trying at that point. And it also ended with a new status quo that I was never really a massive fan of. So I'm going to go for Saw 5. But like I said, I could be completely spitballing here because I don't quite remember exactly what... I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the difference is between Saw 5 and Saw 6. So it's one of those two, I know that much, but I can't tell you which one without having to revisit those films. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. William asks, do you think Bandit's last video was just being petty over losing an argument on the podcast? It seemed like he was hanging dirty laundry. I've not watched all of Bandit's last video, and I'm not here to, burn bridges or just talk crap about Bandit or whatever in this podcast. It's not the place or the platform, and I don't really feel any inclination to do that anyway. I only got halfway through the video because of time constraints and stuff like that. But for those of you who don't know, in the 2-year anniversary of the Movie Mania podcast, me, Bandit, and Trey had a discussion about how Bandit thinks that the next Star Wars film is leaning too heavily on a female audience as opposed to the presumably straight white male geeky audience that Star Wars has built its brand upon, and how it's not going to make as much money because of that. And Bandit's last video put a lot of that discussion on YouTube. I don't know if he has an overarching point at the end or a rebuttal or anything or stuff like that, but I don't know, he's got his own opinion. I don't know what you want from me. I kind of said everything I needed to in that discussion. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Dominic asks, Avengers Assemble or Dark Knight? That's comparing apples and oranges, because they're so different in tone and so different in approach, and they're kind of different eras as well. It's tough. I could watch Avengers Assemble any day, any time, and almost watch, maybe with the exception of the first 5 or 10 minutes, but I can watch any scene of that at any time, regardless of what mood I'm in. For the Dark Knight, there is a bit of downtime that I might, in a rewatch, maybe skip over, or if the Dark Knight is on, if it's on at a certain point in the film, I may come back to it later, or may just find something else to watch on a different channel. So I think just by that very ludicrous criteria, I'm going to go for the Avengers Assemble. But that is by no means a slant on the Dark Knight. That is an amazing film. 3, 2, 1, I guess burped. 3, 2, 1, go. Sam asks, what is the worst episode of Sherlock? I can't quite remember episode names, but there's the end of Series 3, where the plot is literally this guy who has no power or influence or any actual paper trail is meant to be a threat, or the beginning of Series 4, and also the end of Series 4. Series 4 Episode 2 is actually pretty good. I enjoyed that one, but it's either the end of Series 3, the beginning of Series 4, or the end of Series 4. It's one of those 3 episodes. I'm gonna go for the end of Series 3 because the stakes are so nebulous. The stakes are so poorly defined and so badly done that... and then the episode ends with, yeah, you guys got away with that because there was absolutely no stakes there. Like, you had no reason to not shoot the guy. It's so badly done, so badly thought up. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Jonathan asks, will we ever see Mr. Tyler's reviews, Marvel Phase 1 reviews again? Yeah, I got to Iron Man, and then life came up. I've been wanting to finish those, been wanting to do those reduxed versions. It's just a matter of time management and getting around work and all these other stuff, these other things I need to do. It's a boring answer, but it's the truthful answer. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Liam asks, favourite movie related YouTube channels? Collider Movie Talk. I love their content. I'm subscribed to them on iTunes as well, so I can listen to all of their audio stuff. I like... I don't know why I'm blanking here. There's loads of people that I like. I like Lindsay Ellis, who does terrific content, particularly Loose Cannon, which is really great. Movie Bob, who does In Bob We Trust, really that good, and his own geek.com reviews. Who else we got? I'm just scrolling down my recommendeds on YouTube. I like Chris Stuckman and Jeremy Johns. Who else have we got? I'm probably going to go over the minute here, but I just want to make sure I actually get a couple of good names out there. Channel Awesome, of course, he's awesome. Nerdwriter1, he's not entirely about movies, but his movie discussions are brilliant as usual. John Campier. I think that's enough for now, but those are some really great... Oh, Alicia Malone as well. I recently bought her book, which I'm reading through. A really great read. I'll talk about that probably once I've finished it. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Josh McGlynn says, what's the best bad movie you've ever seen? By definition, a bad movie shouldn't really be a best bad movie. Gosh, if you're talking about films that are so bad they're good, The Room is a very predictable answer. The Room is funny. I'm really looking forward to the Disaster Artist, by the way. Best bad movie. I've had this question a few times, and I always struggle to have an answer for it, because for me, a bad movie, it's a bad movie. Why would you, you can get some fun out of it, but I think there's a lot more to be gleaned from watching a genuinely great movie. Maybe there's more to be gleaned from a 10 out of 10 comedy than a 1 out of 10 drama that is so bad that it's funny. I don't know, it's just kind of how my mind works. That's not to say I don't understand the appeal, but, watch the nostalgia critic stuff, and you'll find some movies that you can make fun of and have a real fun time doing that. Okay, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Kyle asks, have you seen Cars 3 and what are your thoughts on the film? I briefly talked about it on the Movie Mania podcast, but I have seen Cars 3. It was alright. It's better than Cars 2. It's better than Cars 2. Probably on par as with the first Cars film, which I did like. I think the animation's really well done. The ending was surprising yet also a bit predictable. You figure that one out. I like how the film played on the emphasis of Doc Hudson, who is easily by far and away the best character in this franchise, and he's only alive in one of those films. So there's a good time to be had, but once again, when you do compare it to Pixar's other output, it does fall notably short, but it's still a fun time. Hopefully Pixar will move on to better things and better users of their time. Next question, what's my phone doing? 3, 2, 1, go. Dominic asks, considering the rumour of a shorter series but longer episodes, do you think Chris Chibnall intends to make Doctor Who more serialised, almost like Star Trek Discovery, considering the strengths of Broadchurch, and do you want him to? I would like the experiment of it being one long story. One long story that can span numerous locations and time periods and stuff like that. Like in maybe the vein of Star Trek. It would be a difficult one to coordinate with the multiple guest writers that a series like that entails and kind of needs. But I would, if they want to do it, do it. If they think they have the capacity to do it and shake things up, and also if they're able to do it within their budget, then yeah, maybe make it one long Trial of a Time Lord type story, or maybe you do make it just standalone hour-long stories and the occasional two-parter. Whatever. We don't know what they're doing at the moment in terms of what the actual stories are going to be, but I'd like them to just try anything and see what sticks and see if they want to do it personally. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go, comes from Tom. I'm not going to give that one much time. How hyped should we be for the new Star Wars film after the latest trailer? Because I already talked about the trailer in the podcast. That's okay, Tom. You did not know before asking the question. But yeah, it's good. I liked it. The trailer looked really, really good. Really enjoyed it. I'm not massively hyped for the film, but yeah, I'm sure it'll be pretty cool. I think Rian Johnson's going to do a pretty good job. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Benedict says, have you heard that Doctor Who Shadow has been animated and is getting a DVD and Blu-ray release later this year? Yeah, I saw the trailer, but this is like the 4th time they've done this. They did a big Finnish recreation. They did an animated recreation with Paul McGann and Lalo Ward. This is like the 3rd or 4th time they've re-released Shadow. This may be the first time they're giving it a DVD and Blu-ray release, and they've got Tom Baker to do it, which is pretty cool. There's audio books, there's big Finnish productions, there's animated productions. This is not a new novel thing. You've done Shadow again. It's okay. If people want to see it again, then do it. Okay. Next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Tom asks, should the BBC get David Bradley to recreate Lost Doctor Who episodes, or would this be a step too far? I think the animated format is good in that you don't step over William Hartnell's legacy, because David Bradley is going to be a great first Doctor for these new stories and and everything, and he was great in Adventure in Space and Time. But we also need to remember that William Hartnell was still a Doctor who existed, who gave many years to the programme, who was heavily invested in the programme both on and off screen, and he still has a legacy that we should respect. Even though many of his stories have been lost, the audio still survives through multiple means, and you can do animated episodes like they did with the 10th Planets, like they did with the Power of the Daleks. He, as logistically possible as it would be to get David Bradley to recreate all those stories, it would be cheaper and also just a lot better for William Hartnell's own personal legacy if we just left his own stories intact as best as we can. No offense to David Bradley, but William Hartnell is still a Doctor that we should respect. And final question once again comes from Tom asking, what do you think Jodie Whittaker's Doctor should wear? I wasn't a fan of the hoodie, but the hoodie in the reveal trailer was clearly just to get some mystery and to hold off the reveal of the body. Because if you have a smaller body that's clearly that of a woman from the back, then it kind of gives the game away a lot earlier than they wanted to. But there's still like some photos of Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor in that black blazer before he got the tweed jacket, so those costumes are still kind of iconic in their own way. But what should she wear? I have no idea. I would love her to wear something similar to what Matt Smith wore in those very first photos before he actually had his proper costume set, or maybe they do go a bit more elaborate like Sylvester McCoy. I don't know. There's not much precedent for a female Doctor in terms of clothing, so I've not given the question much thought, to be honest, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. Do they go minimalist, or do they go extravagant, or somewhere in between? And that's everything. Now, before my voice gives out, I'm going to just thank you all for listening, including those of you who stuck around for the beginning to listen to the weightier topics. I appreciate you putting up with all of my rambling. Next week we'll probably be taking multiple topics and questions from the patrons, so if you'd like to be involved in that, then you can go on www.patreon.com/Trawby. Also, if you pledge during the month of October, you do get your name at the end of the credits for my Before He Wakes short film, which is currently we're trying to arrange block 2 of filming, and we're currently in post-production of block 1. We're getting some really good stuff there. I'm really happy with how it's turning out, and I'll be posting more stuff to the patrons soon in terms of behind the scenes content. You can also follow me on Twitter at Trouble Reviews. You can subscribe on iTunes, leave a review, and be awesome and lovely and great to each other, because that's the main takeaway from this podcast. So before my voice gives out, I just like to thank you all again for listening, and I shall see you folks next time on Film Brits.